For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Albert. This is Derek Evans. It's another glorious day in America's new golden age. And as always, we've got a lot to discuss.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that when it comes to the trade war and the tariffs, I'm not one of these liberals. I am Team USA, baby. Let's go. As always, guys, like, share, subscribe. Whatever platform you're watching on, hop in the comments. We'll do our very best to give you a shout out. I'll read all of them. I'll give you a shout out like this. We have Dan Dreyer in the Rumble chat. We got Obliviously in the Getter chat. And then in the X chat, we've already got Annie and Thaddeus. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We got an awesome show lined up for you guys here today.
Absolutely. And before we get into China turning this tariff war into a suicide pact, I got a video for you. Once again, my boy Harry Enton over there at CNN dropping the truth bombs, injecting those red pills. Oh, this is perfect. Let me just go ahead and run this.
I think there was this concern among some folks that Donald Trump would come in for a second term and kind of be a lame duck. He ain't no lame duck. If anything, he's a soaring eagle. What am I talking about here? Let's talk about Trump executive orders in 2025. He's already signed 111 so far. That is the most at this point in a presidency in at least 100 years. In fact, it's the most in any single year, and we're only in April, since Harry S. Truman in the early 1950s. The bottom line is whether you like Trump or you don't like him, you can't say that he's come in and not try to deliver on what he at least believes was his promises on the campaign trail, and he's doing so in historic fashion.
How are people reacting to and feel about Trump's approach?
Yeah, okay, so Trump's approach here, what are we talking about? Trump's approach to presidential power. I think the American people recognize what he's doing here is completely different. We're talking, get this, 86% of the American public believes that Trump's approach to presidential power is completely different from past presidents, compared to only 14% who believe it is in line with precedent. And we're talking about at least 79% of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. So again, you can agree or you can disagree with Donald Trump, but what you can't disagree with is that he's doing things very differently. I have used the Frank Sinatra quote before. He is doing it, quote unquote, my way, and that is what Donald Trump has done throughout both of his presidential terms, and he's certainly doing that, Kate Baldwin, in term number 2.
So completely differently, clearly they agree, but take it a step further? Do the people think he's taken too much power?
Yeah, this I think is the real question, right? You can believe that he's doing stuff completely differently, but do you think that he has a little too much power or not? And this is interesting. So Trump's presidential power is too much, the right amount, too little. Well, 47% say too much, but then you get 36% who say the right amount. Then you get 17% who say too little. So you're essentially dealing with a majority of the American public, 53%, who do not say that Trump has too much power. They either says he has too little power or the right amount of power. So the idea, that argument that Donald Trump is quote unquote a king, that I don't think holds with the American people. It does hold maybe with 47%, but with the majority of folk, they believe Donald Trump's doing something completely differently, and they don't believe he has too much power, and the executive orders he signed certainly suggest he's no lame duck. He is, as I said at the beginning, a soaring eagle.
A soaring eagle.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's exactly right. And this is, this is what I see in general is most people are happy with what they see President Trump doing. And they see these judges and all these cases interfering with what the American people want to see, especially when it comes to securing the border, deporting these invaders, and DOJ going through and finding all this waste, fraud, and abuse within the government. The American people are behind that, the vast majority, including a large amount of Democrats when it comes to the waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, you wouldn't believe that seeing the Tesla temper tantrums and all these lawsuits, but even a lot of Democrats are behind that.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to Sean in the Getter chat, and then in the X chat we've got Tim, and then we've got Country God 1989. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's amazing. I want everybody, as you watch those watch those clips of CNN and everything, having to admit that President Trump is soaring eagle, if you will. I want you to think about that one liberal relative, liberal friend, a liberal community member who sits around and watches CNN all day with a mindset of Orange Man bad, and they had to watch that streamed into their living room, and that just makes me smile every single time I think about it from that perspective. There's one thing I hope that President Trump does before leaving office, unless we get another MAGA candidate elected as president, and then I would like that torch to be passed to them. But whenever this era comes to an end, and it will come to an end at some point, whether that is at the end of Trump's term, at some point a liberal or even a rhino is going to get elected into there. Anyways, at the end of Trump's term, his last day in office, he should sign one final executive order, and that executive order should simply state no more executive orders are allowed to be signed by presidents, and watch the courts battle it out to whether or not they're able to do that or not. Sign the executive order that this is the last and only executive order. No other executive orders are able to be signed. Everything has to go through Congress the way it's supposed to be, for the record, by the Constitution. But I would love for him to do that on his last day of office.
Yes, and you might as well tag on to there that all my executive orders are now de facto law because Congress did nothing to interrupt them.
Yes.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it because, yes, today's going to be the day of the meltdown. You're going to see a lot of liberals screaming, steam coming out of their ears. You're probably going to see another prediction of a stock market crash. But China decided to respond to Trump's tariffs by tariffs of their own, retaliatory tariffs. Not smart. China strikes back at Trump with immediate 84% tariffs on U.S. goods. And within China, this is already having a direct effect. There have been massive layoffs. A lot of the factories that produce consumer electronics and other cheap goods for the United States with slave labor. A lot of companies, as we already covered, are freaking out, sending production overseas back to the United States and other places. And I don't think they can hold out for very long in this trade war. Trump's now imposed a 104% tariff on Chinese products entering the U.S. I guess we're expecting giant freakouts at the ports this morning as a lot of businesses now turn away freight because the price essentially doubled since it left China, or I guess a little more than doubled since they left China. So, and we're already seeing other countries offer alternatives, offering to move production to India. And a number of other countries have stepped up. That for them, this is an opportunity. So we still have to see how this shakes out. But China, right off the bat, is making bad moves, bad decisions.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I hope that we increase the tariffs on China to 1,000%, 1,000,000%. I don't really care at the end of the day. I'll find that product somewhere else, and hopefully American made and better quality. But as you said, they cannot withstand this. At the same time, we need to. There's two options here, but either way, the end result is we've got to also rip back the land that China has bought in America. There's two ways of doing that. Either we just pass a law that foreign countries cannot are not allowed to own land in the United States of America, or might be even better, we just say that any the property taxes on any land owned by a foreign country is $1 trillion a year. And you can either pay it or lose your property. And just make it something so crazy that there's no way that they could pay it and just confiscate the land that way. That's where I'm at with this stuff. But they do not want any part of this trade war, and I'm here for it. And to anybody out there, mainly those on the left who are complaining right now, but even some of those who are more in the middle or whatever, are like, oh my God, I can't get my cheap products from Walmart anymore. Listen, if you cannot suck it up and be willing to either do without that little cheap Chinese figurine that you're probably going to throw away next month anyways, or go purchase it from an American producer, then I'm sorry, but like, I have to question if you're really American. I mean that sincerely. And we've had ancestors who have literally sacrificed everything to put us in this position. And if you're not willing to make a little tiny sacrifice such as this, then I question, your loyalty to this country and how much you really appreciate what we have here.
Yeah, and I watched a segment yesterday, and I don't remember if this was, I think it was MSNBC, not CNN. It was one of the two, but they had somebody on there, going crazy, talking about how many like kitchen products and household goods are made in China and how much more this is going to cost. But at least they had a guest on there too that punched back that like, okay, well, you could obviously buy American. I mean, there's great companies like there's American Pan, Ameriglow. They're based in Springfield, where they eat the cats and dogs right up the road, and they make high quality kitchen products, pots, pans, and then they make a lot of commercial stuff. Former client of mine. But there's also other alternatives. There's a lot of Japanese companies that make similar high quality kitchen products that they're going to be more expensive than what you buy from China, but less expensive than what is coming from or being made here in America. So if you really want to be cheap, there's still alternatives. But you could also, make a little bit of a sacrifice and support American jobs, help keep the money here within our country, help build up communities. And that's something else. I got another clip I want to play on this. So this is that you had tweeted this out, but this is Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, yesterday. Was this on a CNN? Sorry, I didn't look.
Yep.
But, all right, let's just go ahead and run this in here real quick.
104% tariffs on China
or
are
not
enough.
The video
I'm advocating 400%. I do business
essentially
with China.
He was saying
that
he's down to see a 400% tariff on China because they've been ripping us off for decades. They evade laws. They steal U.S. intellectual property. They make cheap knockoffs of American goods. They're horrible for software, music, and movie piracy. They deserve a 400% tariff, and I couldn't agree more. They've been bad actors and bad faith. They've ignored trade deals. They've ignored other things that are supposed to happen. They ignore their obligations when it comes to anything. And now they want to act upset, like suddenly we've flipped the card table because we're finally doing something about all their trade abuses.
Yeah, well, I'm going to read a quote from that Kevin O'Leary had said there. And that was my fault. I sent it to Mike at the very last minute, so we didn't get a chance to test it out. So I'll take the blame for that. But in that video, he says that, he can only remain the supreme leader if people are employed, talking about the leader of China. And then he says, America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that for forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall. And I'm like, yes, man, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what we need to do. I want to give a couple really quick shout outs and read some comments because we got some good ones over. We got Sarah in the American News X chat. Appreciate you. Dan Dreyer says in the Rumble chat, we built all these countries into what they are today on the backs of American taxpayers. The nipple hasn't even broke the seal and they were already crying. And then we got some other good ones in the X chat. I'll get to the Getter chat later, but we got the old fat man. I'm guessing my fellow West Virginian because he dropped the West Virginia motto in there. So shout out to you. Shout out to Kristen and Janice. And then country boy over here says, oh, well, I won't have to look as hard for non-made in China products anymore. It'd be easier to find products not made in China with all this, which is a great point. And then, man, it was a really good, oh, here it is. Tim says, we've been paying all these other countries tariffs for decades, and we're now getting the scales. We don't need the tea, dump it in the sea. And I would agree with that 100%. And then a couple more shout outs to Mazzella and Brian and Sean over here. Sean says, China doesn't play by the rules. Why do we? And I think that's how most people are actually feeling right now. Let's keep this thing rocking and rolling, man. And there's no reason for us to continue propping up not only any foreign country, but let alone a country that is our enemy, a country that hates us, exact opposite of us. If we're going to prop up any other country right now, I can only think of two, actually, and that would be Argentina and El Salvador. They're the only two that's helping us out at this point. Those are the only two countries I'm willing to work with in terms of helping them out in terms of a form of, I don't want to say charity because they are helping us out, but I mean, if we're going to do any sort of charity work, it should be those two countries right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there may be one or two other ones I'd add to that list that have helped us out, or countries that have worked with us. But yeah, I agree that we've been taken advantage of far too long. I think China's made exactly the wrong move now. They can't sustain this trade war very long. Like I stated earlier, they're already seeing mass layoffs. It's only going to increase. And this is incentivizing other countries now to pick up the slack. A lot of companies will be moving production out of China, especially if this continues for even a week. They're going to start looking at other places to go. I got one other video I want to play, and this is Art Laffer also discussing these tariffs.
What is the win-win strategy?
The win-win strategy is Trump is just phenomenal at negotiating. And Stuart, what he says is extremely true. These people have far higher tariffs and non-tariff barriers and quotas than we do. It is unfair. It has been done. But what he's done now is gotten them into a position where they're going to lose their access to the U.S. market if they don't redress these types of inequities that they've done. And Trump is the master negotiator, and I'm watching these people calling into Trump. This is exactly what he does beautifully and wonderfully, and I believe he can negotiate freer trade deals, get those tariffs way, way down, much lower than they are now, by primarily those people lowering their tariffs and us keeping ours low or even going lower, and it'll be a win-win. The world will prosper, we'll have a great economy, and the U.S. will be in perfect, beautiful shape for economic growth. And that's what he's good at doing. And
again, that really nails it. And again, this is Art Laffer, the Laffer curve. He's an economic genius. And he sees the big picture here and sees exactly what's happening, what Trump's doing, and what the return on that is going to be. We're going to be able to, because it isn't just getting the tariffs and trade under control. There's also going to be expanding markets for U.S. products. Companies that had blocked us from, like Japan, we talked about that yesterday, that very few U.S. cars made it into their market. Basically, there's a few high-end luxury cars, but otherwise they didn't allow them. Same with numerous other products and countries around the world, which means prices will come down for us here in America, jobs will increase, and we'll be bringing more money back into the United States instead of just shoveling it off to every other country around the world.
Absolutely. Well, in the Getter chat, quick shout out to Not Typical Tory, and then obliviously says, "Hey China, you need to be a man. They are all acting as if as passive aggressive, scorned women," which is hilarious. And then Sean says, "CCP has been robbing us since its existence," which is 100% true.
Yep.
And something else in that video that you just played, I noticed that it was showing all the stocks and it was almost all green. What happened to the stock market crash everybody was talking about on Monday that was going to happen from all of this? It looks like, they were wrong about that as usual. But here's the thing. What I don't understand about somebody on the left, that even if they hate President Trump, there's no denying that this man is a master negotiator. There's no denying that he's a very successful businessman. There's no denying that he's running this country like a business right now, which I'm a fan of. But even if you're not, you have to admit those three things. And then if you step back and look at this from an objective lens and say, okay, who better would you want right now negotiating on behalf of our country when our country is being ran like a business? I can't think of anybody that I'd rather have fighting for us and negotiating for us. And, quite frankly, he's doing everything that he campaigned on. He's doing everything that this is a true example of promises made, promises kept. And I am so thankful for all the things that President Trump's doing right now. We've mentioned multiple times, there's going to be little bumps in the road. It's not going to be completely easy to get to where we want to go to, but we know that the big picture, the long-term success is going to be, absolutely amazing for America if we just stick to the plan and continue supporting President Trump as he continues to fight for us.
Yeah, I really think our media has shifted into the boy who cried wolf, too. That's why nobody believes him. Nobody takes him seriously anymore. Because every time Trump does anything, they promise us doomsday, and instead we end up with prosperity. Yeah, that doesn't mean there's not some short-term pain like there is with this. But I think by and large, the American people get it. They see the big picture. You know, I think a lot of them were shocked to learn that, 150 countries had tariffs on us, and we've done nothing about it for decades. We've allowed this trade abuse to continue, and no one stepped up to do anything. And I think, again, this goes back to where's Congress been? Are they getting kickbacks from a lot of these countries to ignore American interests and instead put other nations' interests ahead of our own? And I got two other stories kind of related to this. I'm just going to bring up both headlines real fast, and we can discuss. So we have this. I'll call it the Great iPhone Airlift report. Tech giant Apple flies in 5 plane loads of iPhones from China and India to dodge Trump's America First tariffs. We also have this. U.S. fashion companies manufacturing apparel overseas say Trump's tariffs are an existential threat. So, of course, these are your high-end fashion brands, Nike and whatnot, they make almost a 20 times markup for the shoes when you factor in materials and labor costs. So they're just enormous profit. You have the left talk about abusive profits. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of getting to that point when it's 20 times what it costs you to make the product. That's what you're charging on the street for it. $200 plus for some of these shoes that apparently cost them, less than $10 to make. And again, that's not for every single product across the board, but they're not trying to dodge that. They're trying to move production now out of China to somewhere else. And I guess their profits are going to have to go down to just, 10 times their cost to manufacture.
Absolutely. And something else, the left, the left is continuously complaining and talking about slavery, reparations, all these things that happened hundreds of years ago, while at the same time, they're propping up China, who is basically slave labor over there right now. So let's talk about modern day slavery. And of surprise, which party are the ones that are actually supporting modern day slavery? Of course, it's the Democrats. They have historically supported slavery. They're the party of slavery originally. They're the party of Jim Crow laws. They're the party of that fought against the civil rights movements, all of those sorts of things. So it should be no surprise that they are now supporting modern day slavery through the slave labor of China. But that's exactly what's taking place here right now. That's what China is doing. That's why people were shipping things over there, because people were working all day long for $1, maybe $2 a day sometimes. And these people are okay with that, which is absolutely fascinating to me when they're the ones that's beating the drums, wanting to talk about slavery and reparations all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like the disconnect just doesn't make sense. But I honestly, I think this is willful ignorance with most of the people on the left. They know these brands support their causes, and that's like paying for a pass to ignore all the human rights violations, the slavery, and everything else that these companies participate in to bring the cheap goods that these leftists can buy. Their stylish MacBooks and iPhones, their Nikes, their whatever other clothing brands important to the left right now. They don't care about it as long as these companies have paid the toll and donate to the left and leftist causes and support them. Then they'll look the other way when they're exploiting humans all around the world. All right, guys, we got to take a quick break, hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with even more.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our show and all the great programs here on Ex American News by supporting our sponsors. Mike Lindell and all the employees at MyPillow are once again in the crosshairs for the media. Mike's going to be running against Tim Walz for governor of Minnesota, or at least he's floating that idea. We need a great patriot up there. This is an opportunity to not just get a good deal, get yourself quality merchandise, support American manufacturers by supporting MyPillow and my store, but you can do it at the best possible price. Use code INSURRECTION. You're going to get the deepest discount. You're going to support Mike Lindell, all his employees at MyPillow, and you're supporting a great American patriot that's still fighting for free and fair elections, which we're going to be talking about later in the show. And somebody that is a true patriot, somebody that's willing to take a stand no matter how many slings and arrows are headed their way.
And Mike, really quick, shout out to FG in the Getter chat, but she says that Mike, I did not know this, is having his 4th throat surgery. So everybody keep Mike Lindell in your prayers as he goes to have that throat surgery. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, and this is right off the heels of another one that he had just a few weeks ago. So, yeah, I'll get an update on that for you guys over the next day or two. Let's go ahead and move on, though, to our next topic. And we haven't really touched on this too much. I feel like it's been on our queue a few times, and we haven't got to it. But this is a bigger deal than I think some people think it is. Mark Levin sounds alarm on Sharia law-compliant city planned in Texas. City's report from Gateway Pundit. So he cited the Gateway Pundit report. But this is a huge deal, and I know Paxton and others are starting to look into it in Texas right now. But Sharia law is completely incompliant. It's antithetical to the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law in America. They do not believe in individual rights. Protection from women are out the door, and they're going to have their little religious police going around this facility enforcing Sharia law in their little enclave there. And we can't have these Islamic enclaves popping up around the nation.
Yeah, well, first of all, let's just make it short and sweet here. Ban Sharia law in this country. It cannot coexist with us. We are being conquered right now. I mean, people need to look at Europe and see what's going on over there. That's coming to a city near you. Actually, it's already here in a lot of cities. Go to Dearborn, Michigan. Go to Minnesota. Go to a lot of these other places, and it's already here. I mean, the fact that you can't even peacefully walk down the street without hearing these daggone bells and horns or whatever, and people laying in the street praying. And I mean, this is absolutely unbelievable that we're allowing this to happen in our country. You can call me a racist. You can call me a bigot. I don't really care what you call me. This is a Christian nation, and we are accepting of other people, but not of people who hate us and, quite frankly, want to do us harm, which they do. I don't know if you guys saw, but we covered it briefly a while back, but the epic city that is being proposed in Texas, it is a Islamic-only community, basically a residential development in Texas. It's about 40 minutes or so north of Dallas. And it's a 402 acres. And they've approved this for them to build an Islamic-only community there in Epic City. This is, once again, unbelievable that we're allowing this to happen, that we are slowly being conquered, and people are afraid to speak out about it because they don't want to get canceled. I would rather be canceled than to be conquered. That's just, I'd rather be canceled than killed or conquered, but that's what's happening right now. And if you're too big of a coward to speak up against this that's infiltrating our country right now because you're afraid of being canceled or afraid of losing your job, then shame on you, because you're going to be an old man or an old woman, and you're going to sit around and you're going to watch your children and your grandchildren being forced to do who knows what. And it's going to be on you because you were not courageous enough. It's not even courage. It's just speaking the truth. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of people, at least in this generation or so of America, they forget that a lot of these Islamic countries were not Islamic in the 70s. There's pictures of these people, of women in the 70s wearing normal clothes over there in these countries. And so I know 70 seems like a long time ago. It's really not. But in just a few decades, they are now a full-blown Islamic country. That is what they are planning to do here in America. And we've got to start standing up and speaking out about it and calling it out for what it is.
Yeah, and shout out to Annie Cyrus here. She produces a lot of the shows here on Ex American News, and you can catch her program Live Up to Freedom on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But she's done numerous episodes on this, how like Iran was mini America until 1978, and a lot of those photos that you're talking about, women going to universities wearing normal westernized clothes. a lot of people don't know this, that prior to the Islamic takeover there, they actually used the U.S. Constitution, minus the Second Amendment, was the supreme law in the land in Iran. They had a royalty, a king, and all that, but he served more as like a equivalent of like a president. It's not quite the same, and she can give you a lot better detail than I can. But, again, this is a massive change. We can't allow this here in America. Like I said, Sharia law is completely incompliant with the U.S. Constitution. Where are the feminists? Where are they upset that, it takes now 4 women to count as one man's testimony in court, or these, forcing people to wear a garbage bag while they're outside walking down the street? They're of course silent on this because of this idiotic idea of intersectionality, but this is the outproduct of that. Is eventually you end up with these Sharia enclaves, these no-go zones, and we can't allow that to take hold, especially not in Texas.
Absolutely. I'm going to give a quick shout out to Austin the Coal Cracker in the X chat, and then the West Virginia Knothawk. West Virginia Knothawk says, let them cancel you, don't cancel yourself. Man, I couldn't say it any better. That's the exact truth. If you're going to be too afraid to speak out, then you've canceled yourself. That's exactly right. That's what's happened here, and it's really sad. And then Dan Dreyer says, this is a Trojan horse. I agree 100% that it would be saying it very politely that this is a Trojan horse. We cannot, once again, allow this to continue happening and infiltrating our country, if you will. There was something, man, I'll get this report. I don't want to give specific numbers. I posted about it, but I don't have the numbers like remembered in my head, and I don't want to say something. But basically there was a news segment that came out, and I'll find it, where they were talking about there were more Muslims who ran for public office this last election than ever before. There was like way more that got elected this go around as well. And so I'm telling you guys, this is a major, people are going to look back. They can say whatever they want to us about us today, but they're going to look back in 30, 40 years and be like, wow, these people were actually, speaking the truth then. I wish people would have listened to them at the time. I really believe that's what we're going to see happen if things are not if there's not some serious changes that are made with this. They are absolutely, to their credit, they want to conquer us more than we don't want to be conquered. So I mean, you have to admit that. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the unfortunate truth. You're dead on. And, that's the other thing, too, is I've seen people, mostly on the left out there saying, oh, you guys, it's only Islam. You guys don't treat the Sikhs or the Hindus or the Taoists or the Buddhists or whoever else like that, the other religions of the world. Well, yeah, it's because other ones aren't trying to violently conquer their enemies, that they're not trying to expand their rule with violence or compliance. I don't care about there's a Sikh guy lives down the street from me that owns a small trucking company. Great guy, super nice guy. But he's also not trying to, spread. They're not trying to make an enclave and have protected rights for them and whoever else. He came here to be an American. Yeah, he still got his religion that he came here from, but he's here building a successful business and employing several Americans. Same with Buddhists. They have temples out in outside LA. They're beautiful areas, but they're not trying to conquer Los Angeles. That's just their faith. It's part of who they are, but they're still here at the end of the day to be Americans. They're not trying to conquer the world with violence, and unfortunately, Islam is. Well, we got more stories to get to here and more reasons for the left's head to explode, because Trump got 2 giant wins at the Supreme Court. Well, not giant wins, but partial wins. Supreme Court says yes, allows Trump admin to fire 16,000 probationary federal workers. And again, this is just restating the obvious, that the executive branch has the authority to hire and fire who they want within the branch or within any of these executive agencies. Now, hopefully, it's not going to, but this should get a lot of these corrupt judges in D.C. to drop these other cases, whether they're about an individual or people going to the merit board or whoever else. But this is, again, reinstating that the executive does, in fact, have the authority to hire and fire who they choose.
Well, I mean, that should be common sense once again. And so I will say this. I think that at this point, with the activist judges at the district level and having I know we're supposed to have a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, but it's been proven time and time again that the few of them at the very least are very squishy. I would say that any win right now in the court system is a major win for President Trump. And don't forget, Amy Coney Barrett sided against us on a lot of these things right now. But yeah, so the district court had ruled that Trump had to unfire 16,000, roughly 16,000 people, and had to hire them back by midnight or whatever. It was something stupid. And the Supreme Court stepped in and said, nope, don't have to do that. And so that was a huge, once again, every win that we're getting in the court system right now with the way things are set up, in my opinion, is a huge win for President Trump, the America First movement, and saving our country.
Yeah, and you're right. Like Amy Coney Barrett has been such a disappointment. She's been wrong on so many things. I can accept here and there that there'll be conservative justices that are going to rule by the letter of the law, and we might not get the decision that we want. But, at least then there's something they can base it on, whereas a lot of this just appears to be based on emotions and feelings. Like there's nothing they can cite, no law, no other reason, no other impropriety to make a lot of the decisions they have for her to continue to side with these leftist lunatic justices. Is it the girl power? Is it that that's what it is, that they're going to side against the conservatives and show their solidarity? I don't know what the problem is with her, especially considering how hard Trump went to bat to get her through and pushing back against a lot of their lies from the left. I remember her at her hearings. They were trying to make it sound like she was some religious fanatic that was going to rule as a theocrat. That's clearly not the case. But my other question is: have they corrupted her? Are they putting pressure on her? Do they have some kind of blackmail they're holding over her head? Because a lot of these decisions even seem out of line with decisions she'd made when she was still a lower court justice. So I don't know, but yeah, something's definitely up. And yeah, I do agree that these are victories. I just don't like that the other one related to Trinidad Agua, they're still saying that these people need hearings first, because if we have to give hearings to the 30 million people that are here illegally, we're never going to be able to push everybody out. And especially people like this, violent criminals, gang members, people that are now on the terror watch list, they're not deserving of hearings. We already, this isn't the kind of crime where there's an argument of whether somebody's guilty or not. You're here physically in the United States. You're not a citizen. You're here illegally. You don't have permission. Case closed. Deport them back to wherever they go.
Man, I'll tell you what. So, Derek over here in the X chat, first of all, I'll read that. Derek says we all need to start removing false courts, bureaucrats, senators, and congressmen. Amen to that. Absolutely, we got to get that done. And Tim says it's called the executive branch for a reason. People need to realize that. That's exactly right. The Babylon Bee never misses. They're hilarious. They put out a thing where they photoshopped in a MS-13 gang member into the photo family of Amy Coney Barrett and said that Amy Coney Barrett has adopted an MS-13 gang member, which I thought was funny. And then the MAGA base, you guys are so creative. That's not really my thing. I enjoy it, but I'm not a very creative person in that regard. But I saw where somebody had took a picture of Amy Coney Barrett in her robe and everything, judge robe, and they photoshopped MS-13 like tattoos all over her face and neck and everything. I thought that was hilarious as well. But yeah, it's unbelievable what we're dealing with here. And I think what's frustrating to me about her specifically is the left fought her so hard trying to prevent her from being appointed to that position, and Trump and MAGA, everybody went to bat for her. Everybody defended her and went through with it anyways. And now here she is, changing sides, if you will. And it's very frustrating that this continues to happen. And that's what concerns me about daggone, what's the good one? The black guy, I can't think of his name. Clarence
Thomas.
That's what worries me about him stepping down. He's been one of the most solid conservative Supreme Court justices we've had in our lifetime. I know he's looking at retirement. He's thinking about doing it under President Trump, but we just have to be honest here. Trump's made a lot of appointments. I think he did everything in terms of vetting. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of these people turned around and turned into be a bunch of turds after they got in there. And that's pretty frustrating. That concerns me if we were to replace him over the next little bit. And
there's your photo of Amy Cohen. Sorry, I got it up just as you were finishing. But yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, Clarence Thomas, he deserves to be able to retire, be happy, spend time with his family. But at the same time, we really need him right now. We need real conservatives. And I don't know what we can do to improve the vetting process for the next round of appointments that Trump makes. Because, yeah, Clarence Thomas wants to step down. Word on the street is that so does Sotomayor, that she's having a lot of health problems and other issues. And there's no way that chunky lesbian's going to stick around for too much longer either. So Trump, I think, is going to have at least 2 more appointments to make. Because, yeah, the word is, Sotomayor, she's had some major health concerns. And again, no knock on her for that. Everybody's got them at some point when you get older. But yeah, these 2 justices, if they want to, should be able to step down, spend time with their family. But right now, we really need Thomas up there to offset this counterbalance from the lunatic left and from people like Amy Coney Barrett that, I don't know, lost their drive or lost their sense to protect the country. We also have this, though, and again, more lunatic judges. Judges demand Trump administration reinstate AP to special status after Gulf of America naming dispute. So, AP doesn't want to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So they're not letting them in the Oval Office anymore for interviews there or for the Oval Office press conferences. Fine. But again, shouldn't it be the executive branch determines who's allowed to go in there and interview or ask questions or whatever else? This is their right. We know the Obama administration and Biden pushed out a lot of conservative media, refused to take their questions, other than Steve Ducey, which hat tip to him for doing a great job during the Biden years. But this is just yet another, to me, it seems clear and obvious overstep of the court's authority. I mean, this court should have laughed them out. This judge should have laughed them out of court for being crybabies about getting thrown out of these press conferences because they refused to acknowledge the Gulf of America.
So first of all, I want to give a shout out to Josh C. is me over here in the Rumble chat. And then Dan Dreyer says 5-4 is scary. 1 vote for 330 million citizens. That is scary. Back to this whole story here, though. I don't understand how they're even claiming this, what they're claiming right now. So a couple things to unpack here is they're not limited from asking questions. They're not limited from being able to critique or bash or whatever else President Trump or the administration or anything else. They have been denied access to what is considered limited areas, the Air Force One, the Oval Office. That is common sense. That is normal. And quite frankly, I don't think that the president should have to give a reason for not allowing certain journalists or media outlets to come to those areas. I mean, we know the reason, but I don't think there should even have to be a reason given. If the Supreme Court actually upholds this, okay, and I'm not joking when I say this, we're going to go file for access as an ex-American News, and every American out there should file for get your press credentials as an independent journalist and demand access to the Oval Office and to Air Force One.
Yeah.
How I mean, because that's what they're saying. I mean, if the judge says, a court says that everybody has access to it just because they have a press pass, then everybody has access to it. And obviously, they can't fit everybody, but I'm serious. That's what I think everybody should do is go get a press pass, go apply, and then sue and say, well, you're not letting me in. I don't care if there's 5 million people already in there. I want in too. And if you're not letting me in, I'm going to sue you. That's what we need to do to prove a point of how stupid this whole entire thing really is.
But Derek, AP is special. They're part of the legacy media. I mean, they're the ones that are supposed to determine what all of us think. How can they do that if we're denying them access?
It's true.
Retards.
That's what they think.
Yeah. Well, they think they're special, but their ratings say otherwise. Our new golden age will be coal-fired. Trump signs executive order to revitalize American coal production. By the way, I forgot to mention previously that Trump also signed an executive order outlawing Sharia law in the United States. But, I guess we'll have to see what happens there. But, yeah, I think this is amazing. This is wonderful news. I'm sure you guys are really excited over there in West Virginia, huh, Derek?
We are, man. Absolutely. For those of you who don't know, I live in the coal fields of West Virginia, right on the border of Eastern Kentucky. My dad, both of my grandfathers, all of my great grandfathers, everybody coal miners, uncles, you name it, everybody coal miners. My generation is the first generation that was not afforded that opportunity to step out of high school straight into a good job mining coal to start providing for your family, because we suffered through the Obama war on coal. This is absolutely amazing. The people here are super excited about the potential for this. Now, I do want to let everybody know that there's been so much damage done by these left-wing extremists under the guise of climate change. It's going to take a long time to actually recover from that, even with this going on, because a lot of the coal-fired power plants have actually been completely torn down, completely, like they don't even exist anymore. I'm over here pushing, asking our government here in the state of West Virginia to, now that we have this executive order, which I've been saying it for a while anyways, to start rebuilding those power plants. I've been saying for a while that, as far as I'm concerned, as somebody who's a West Virginian, we should be building coal-fired power plants. We should be burning coal to produce electricity. And if the federal government wants to try to stop us, they should be met with the West Virginia National Guard and a bunch of hillbillies with guns holding middle fingers up. That's what we need. I mean, that's where I'm at with this. Who are they to tell us that we cannot do these things? So thank you to President Trump on behalf of everybody who lives in the coal fields of southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky, all this whole region that our communities have been built on coal, and then our communities were completely demolished from the war on coal. Thank you so much for even just giving us a fighting chance to rebuild our local economies on coal. Because in my area, we have the thermal coal. There's a difference. I'm not going to get into the whole weeds there. There's the met coal that is used to produce steel, and thermal coal. Our met coal mines are, for the most part, still active, but the thermal coal industry was absolutely destroyed because that burns at a lower temperature, and that's what they use to produce coal, or to produce electricity. So,
yeah, exactly. And I want to remind our audience here too, you kind of touched on it, that during the Biden years, not only were they paying power distribution companies to knock down the coal-fired power plants, but they were actually paying them extra to destroy all the equipment in there so it couldn't be turned back online later. And of course, this is at the same time where they're trying to shove electric vehicles down our throats. We've of course got to knock the power grid down to the point where it can't sustain that if people were to convert over to electric vehicles. Guys, we got to take one more quick break here from our sponsors and be right back with even more.
Well, hello everybody, it's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the great programs here on X America News by supporting our sponsors. So go to lutfstudios.com right now. Get yourself a unique, one-of-a-kind, handmade piece of art from Annie Cyrus. Help support her and all the great work she's doing. Because in addition to bringing you Live Up to Freedom, she also produces a lot of the shows you have here on the network. And again, this is an opportunity to own a family heirloom. Before we jump into our next story, I also want to turn you guys' attention over to Gateway Pundit. Go over there. You'll see an article titled Chicago's Tren de la Agua Problem. FOIA shows criminal gang members arrests throughout city. Articles by Paul Drabeck. He's a co-host with Terry Newsom of Behind Enemy Lines. And I was on with Terry last night on Behind Enemy Lines talking about this. These are the FOIAs that Terry was able to get. I mean, these are insane. These show coordinated efforts behind the scenes with the city of Chicago to continue to fund illegal aliens using city and state money, despite the executive orders and rule changes coming out from Trump and the Trump administration, attempting to waste your money on housing and feeding illegal aliens, I guess, just into the future forever.
And I just want to say you can catch their show right here on X America News. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. I'm really proud of the work that they did breaking that story, to get that out there the way that they have. He's been working on that for a really long time, I know. So shout out to them.
Oh, yeah, and he'll have more information. He's got hundreds of pages of these FOIAs. We only went through the first couple hundred last night, and I know he's got more. But yeah, you can catch them every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Behind Enemy Lines with Terry Newsom and Paul Drabeck, and me on Tuesdays. But let's go ahead and jump into our next story here, because the left has gone insane. We've covered a lot of their violence. But now the majority of Americans on the left say that murdering Trump is justified in a new poll. 55% think it's okay, that it would be good for our country and good for the world if President Trump were to be assassinated. I mean, these moonbats have completely lost it. And the fact that this is now a majority opinion and not just I expect they're violent activists, the ones out there torching Tesla dealerships and attacking conservatives and, all the other just nonsense we've seen out of them. Well, really going back to the inception of the Democrat Party, terrorism has always been their tactic if they don't get their way, going back to the Ku Klux Klan, to bombings in the 1970s, to the Summer of Love. This is always what they resort to when we won't capitulate to their demands. This shows a whole new level of insanity.
The left has always been the party of violence, and to your point, they are just getting worse with it. And it is sad that think about this: how many of those people answered no who actually do think so, but they did not want to admit it because they would be afraid to admit that? I mean, you got to think these people answered the phone to a stranger calling them and asking them, "Do you think it's justified to assassinate the president?" And they answered yes. Now think about that for a second, of how crazy you would have to be and how detached from reality and everything else that you would actually be willing, even if you believed it, even if you did believe it, to actually say that. I never even considered that when I was going through January 6th. I never considered going to that level of things ever. So I don't understand it. And I mean that sincerely. I cannot put myself in the mindset of somebody who not only believes that, but believes it so strongly and is so carefree with that belief that they would answer a phone call from a stranger and tell them that they agree with that. That is insane to me. These people are nuts.
Oh, exactly. I mean, they want to pretend. They pretend that Trump's got the Gestapo marching down the street, crucifying trans people, and that we're firing illegal aliens over the border with a catapult. If you listen to their ramblings and their solutions to it, you would think that's what was going on here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are lines that cannot be crossed where we do have to discuss removing tyrants, but we're nowhere near those. Even under Joe Biden, as bad as things were, that is not something that would have been a viable option. But the left is insane. They're not getting any better. And, really, we need to make mental institutions great again. Something needs to happen. But I mean, they're already turning to violence, but I think we're headed for another Summer of Love, and it's going to get nasty. But let's move to some good news here. We're almost out of time. So Trump admin moves to fine illegal aliens $998 per day if they don't self-deport. I think this is brilliant because we're going to get an opportunity to re-seize a lot of the assets that we've given to the illegals, these invaders, while they're here. If they won't comply and self-deport, well, then we're going to take it back out of their bank accounts, their property, and whatever else. And recover at least some of the money we've wasted facilitating this invasion into our country.
Yeah, and as I said, previously, look, if you're here illegally and you've built up a savings account, bank account, you should be thankful that you were able to steal from Americans as long as you have, and you should take that little nest egg that you've built up. You should self-deport and use that to start a better life in your either your country of origin or pick another country. I don't really care if you're not from Mexico and you want to invade Mexico. I don't really care what you do. Get out of my country. Leave us alone. But if not, then if we catch you, then one of the first things they should do is search to see if they have a bank account somewhere and confiscate every single penny that they have in order to make them pay the fine, if you will, and on top of other things. So kind of incentivizing them to just go ahead and leave on their own. And once again, I know that we all want to see more deportations, but if somebody came to you a week before the election, said President Trump's going to win, in the first 100 days, it's not even been 100 days yet, but in the first 100 days, they're going to deport over 100,000 not just illegals, but I mean the most violent gang members, violent illegals. They're going to deport over 100,000 of them, and we're going to secure the border to where there's nobody else coming in. You would say, man, that would be awesome. That would be incredible. And so I think that we're all talking about the deportation. Something that doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, is the fact that President Trump has closed the border. So it's one thing if you deport 100,000 and another 50,000 or another 100,000 came across the border. We've shut down the border. There's nobody else coming in, and we're deporting people. So this is really big. Just closing the border by itself is a huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I really wonder too is, how many people have self-deported and already left the country that we're not really seeing updated numbers on, because I know that like in Springfield, they were saying that somewhere between like 2,000 and 5,000 people they think have left from all the Haitians that were up here. I think 5,000 is probably a stretch, but I wouldn't be too surprised if 2,000, 20% hadn't already left just because they saw the hammer coming down. And like you said, they might as well take all the money they've been given here for, they were, here abusing our welfare systems and other programs. They might as well take that home, because if you can leave here with say $6,000 for your family, go back to Haiti or wherever, that $6,000 US is going to be worth a lot more there than it is here, and buy you a lot. It's a real opportunity if you're going to go back to your home country with all the money we've given you now, and go build a life. So you might as well get out now before that's confiscated.
And our pets are now safe.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to worry about them eating pork
now up there.
Exactly. They're not going to turn him into a couple of steaks and a nice pair of fluffy gloves or whatever. This is more great news, though. IRS agrees to share information on illegal immigrants with ICE. This is a huge development. And what was her name? The acting IRS commissioner
Melanie Kraus.
Yeah, there you go. Resigned after this because she doesn't want to be mean to the illegal aliens. But this should have happened from day one. We know a lot of these fake Social Security numbers were handed out. I'm sure there are ways to go through this data and figure out what taxpayers are actually illegal aliens, and also find out how many of them were filing fraudulent, claiming family members and other things getting tax returns they should not have been entitled to. So this is a great first step. And again, if you're here illegally, this means now they've got your number, they've got your address, they know who you are. And if employers are still considering to continuing to employ these people, I think it's time to start finding the big employers that are abusing the system.
I would agree with that 100% as well. And yeah, Melanie Kraus, she resigned because she did not want to participate in this. Good riddance, as far as I'm concerned. And while we're at it, we should just shut down the entire IRS altogether. I mean, we don't need an acting chief. We need to just keep boosting up the tariffs and not worry about it. But so good riddance to her. Actually, respect the fact that she went ahead and resigned, as opposed to sitting there and refusing to do this and trying to subvert the sitting president of the United States of America. So I will give her credit on that. I mean, the more of these left-wing extremists in the government need to do the exact same thing and just go ahead and resign and be done with it. But look, we converted the CBP1 app that was enticing people to come here, and it converted that into a self-deportation app. It automatically updated on these people's phones for them. There's no excuse for them not to know about that, and they could use that to self-deport. And I would imagine we could use that app to track these people if they're holding their phones. We need to use every available resource that we have, whether that's IRS documents, whether that is using that app to go in and track them and start rounding up. Look, we've put a good dent in the criminal illegal aliens, if you will. They're all criminals because they all invaded our country. But I mean, we put a dent in the gangbangers and the worst of the worst and getting rid of them. It's time to actually start expanding this. And I'm not kidding. I don't care if we're waiting at bus stops and catching illegals, children as they come off the bus, and and deporting them with their families. Every single man, woman, and child who is here illegally, I don't care how old they are. I don't care how long they've been here. I don't care if they're a good member of the community. Any of that stuff, you got to go because you're here illegally, and you should have came here the right way. Simple as that.
Exactly. Yeah, we can't play around. We can't play games anymore. It's time to resolve this problem once and for all before it gets even worse and gets even more out of hand. We've got a very limited window to accomplish this. We might have the next year and a half. We might have 4 years. Depends what happens with the midterms. But we need to put some other rules in effect. We really need Congress to pick this up. We've mentioned this before, and I know there's some conservatives that don't like the idea of adding E-Verify to employment, but it needs to happen. There needs to be a way to force mandate E-Verify and then force companies to be in compliance with it. And then I'll have no problem fining companies that are hiring illegal aliens, because there'll be no excuse. They'll have known as soon as they put their paperwork through E-Verify. You'll know within minutes, usually. I mean, the worst case, hours. I've worked at several staffing companies where we were E-Verify compliant, and we ran every employee, every person that even applied through E-Verify, and the minute you got a note back saying that something was wrong, every once in a while it is a system error. We had a woman who had been married, changed her last name, and had filed things appropriately, but Social Security didn't update their records. So, we had to notify her that there was a problem. It was easy to resolve. Then she went to work. But otherwise, it basically just caught illegal aliens. As soon as I told somebody there was a problem with their E-Verify, never heard from them again. So we know these systems work, and it's an easy way to, if we've removed welfare benefits, taken those away from anyone that is here illegally, any of these invaders, if we've fixed that glitch, then using E-Verify to remove work opportunities from the ones that remain, they will self-deport.
Absolutely. And that's what needs to happen. 100%.
All right, guys, we are about out of time. I want to thank you again for joining us today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. We'll be back tomorrow.